when I thought I couldn't find my way out. Yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, way out. Yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better day. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. Can't mind the energy. Can't mind. How can mind your energy? That's right. How can mind that? Only you can make the change. How can mind share your energy? How can mind shine so bright from darkness to light. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Yeah. Oh, it won't seem way out. Yeah. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Welcome. My name is DJ Genesis, and I am your host. This is Alchemizing Energy, and today we are going to be discussing the new rise of white converts to Islam, mainly white Americans. So, what happens when people who once dominated Western Christianity begin turning toward Islam? Not only Islam, but in some cases, the Nation of Islam. Tonight, we're talking about why more white people are converting, what they are searching for spiritually, and whether this says something deeper about modern society collapsing emotionally, culturally, and spiritually. Is this about discipline, masculinity, community, race, rebellion against Western culture, or are people simply searching for the truth? Tonight, we're going to go deep. So let's get into it.
I think that for whatever reason, God introduced me to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Whatever the reason was, it would become the medicine, the only medicine that I could have possibly received that would have healed me from that mental sickness was Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his voice. I don't know that I can explain the insanity that I was going through. Let me see if I can explain it just by some of the experiences that happened over the next couple of years as I tried to grasp the teachings and also grasp the reality that I was living in, which became homelessness, mental illness, drug addiction, bad drug addiction, and just complete chaos and utter destruction.
So, that's interesting, right? He was going through a chaotic situation. And a lot of times, people join the nation, out of prison, they get introduced to it from prison. Even Malcolm X, he was in prison, I think for prostitution or something like that. And he, found out about this through prison. But let's get into, first, let's understand what the Nation of Islam is. And then we'll get into the more recent converts being white people, because it gets really interesting when you know what the information is. Let's go.
We're exploring a different aspect of Islam that we've never done a dedicated video about before. Now, this aspect is the teachings and the organization of the Nation of Islam. Welcome to another episode of FD Facts. My name is Leroy Kenton, and for this episode, I'm going to be looking at 10 surprising facts about the Nation of Islam, from its conception to its teachings, its major milestones, and more. Before I get into those facts, leave a like on this episode, as well as subscribe and ring that bell if this is your first time here to FD Facts, and that way you'll be notified of our daily episodes. Okay, so let's just get right into it, starting off with what the Nation of Islam actually is. So the Nation of Islam is an African-American movement and organization founded in the 1930s and known for its teachings combining elements of traditional Islam with Black nationalist ideas. The nation also promotes racial unity as well as self-help and maintains a strict code of discipline among its members. Next thing to know about the Nation of Islam is that the belief or faith of Islam was brought to the United States by African Muslim slaves. And it kept a very small presence there in the country. And this was throughout the 19th century. And then it emerged at the beginning of the 20th century as a result of the efforts of the Ahmadiyya movement, which is an unorthodox sect of Islam founded in India by Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, who was born 1839 to 1908, as well as of Sheikh Ahmed Faisal, born 1891 to 1980.
Okay, so you know what? Okay, because I don't want to say the wrong thing about Malcolm X. So he was selling drugs. I thought it was like pimping or something like that. But okay, selling drugs. nevertheless, he learned about the Nation of Islam in prison, and that's how he was introduced to and became Malcolm X. So let's go.
And Sheikh Ahmed Faisal was a Moroccan-born leader of an independent black movement. The Muslim teachings in the Nation of Islam were tied to black nationalism by Nobel Drew Ali, originally named Timothy Drew, who lived 1886 to 1929. And he also founded the Moorish Science Temple of America in New York, New Jersey in 1913. Now, he produced a new sacred text, the Holy Quran, that really has little resemblance to its namesake, and it was based on his limited knowledge of Islam, as well as on other spiritualist teachings. Now, talking a little bit more about the history of the Nation of Islam specifically. Now, Wallace D. Fard, he was originally from Saudi Arabia, and he founded it in Detroit, Michigan in the United States. Now, he established a temple, which was a University of Islam, and a corps of male guards called the Fruit of Islam that year. Now, according to the group's website, Fard, he preached that African Americans belonged to the tribe of Shabazz from the lost nation of Asia, who had been enslaved in America for more than 3 centuries. According to
Now, here's the thing. So just like you have the Hebrew Israelites that say that they're from Israel, you have in Islam the tribe of Shabazz that are from Asia. And that's where you get the whole idea of the Asiatic black man, you know, because they you know, even in 5% Nation, even Wu-Tang talks about the Asiatic black man. This comes from those teachings. Let's go.
The website, his mission was to teach the downtrodden and defenseless black people a thorough knowledge of God and of themselves, and to put them on the road to self-independence with a superior culture and higher civilization than they had previously experienced. The group makes the belief system of Islam. They read the Quran, they worship Allah as their God, and they accept Muhammad as their prophet, and they mix that with black nationalism. Now, Fard believed that African Americans should prepare for a race war, and Christianity was a religion for slave owners. Now, a member's given name, which he believed originated during slavery, he believed that they should actually be replaced with Arabic names. So many people who joined the Nation of Islam, you'll notice that right away, their name just completely changed to something totally different. Also in the year 1931, Fard met a migrant worker named Elijah Poole, who changed his name to Elijah Muhammad. And for the next 3.5 years, he reportedly taught and trained the Honorable Elijah Muhammad night and day into all of the profound secret wisdom of the reality of God.
Now, let me also tell you this. Elijah Muhammad was also a Mason. And some of his, and if you actually look at the video I did with Natural Tahuti, he talks about like that a lot of Elijah Muhammad's teachings were a mixture of ancient Kemet teachings and Islam, which is really surprising and interesting too. But I'm not sure if he's going to like even say this, but let's go.
Religion of God, which means entire submission to his will, who has been here for 400 years, serving the white man of America's well. And now he has become to think in terms of the white man's thinking. He thinks now that he should be part of the white man.
Now, the Nation of Islam considers Fard to be the Messiah of Judaism, as well as the Mahdi of Islam, who is the prophesied Redeemer of Islam. And they believe that he was Allah in the flesh, the second coming of Jesus Christ, Jehovah God, as well as the son of Mary. Now, Fard mysteriously disappeared in the year 1934, and he was last seen by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and was never heard of or seen again. Now, today, they celebrate his birthday, known as Savior's Day, on February 26.
If we would be let alone by doing the thing that is right, every nation go to its own, as is predicted in the Bible, that the time that will come, that God will force all nations to go to their own. And I don't think that the time is too far distant.
Now, when it comes to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, well, he took over leadership of Fard's group in Detroit. And he changed the name of the Allah Temple of Islam to Nation of Islam. And then for the next 41 years, until he passed away in the year 1975, Elijah Muhammad served as the mentor to some influential African Americans, most notably Malcolm X, as well as Muhammad Ali.
Not black Muslim, it's Muslim. Islam religion has no color distinction.
And he grew the small group into a large movement. And he developed many Nation of Islam-owned businesses as well as schools. And he created the largest African-American newspaper in the United States. At the height of his power, the Nation of Islam was estimated to have about 250,000 total members. And by the way, there's an interesting documentary out on Netflix now called Who Killed Malcolm X? If you want to know a lot more about the Nation of Islam, the teachings, some of the dramas and the controversies that was involved in that, I highly recommend that documentary. I just finished watching it myself. It was really eye-opening. Yes, it's titled Who Killed.
I didn't know they had 200,000 followers. 200,000. Wow. I didn't know that would make it easy to have a million-man march, though. If you got 2,000 people following, hey, a million is only like 200,000. I didn't know it was that man.
Malcolm X, and Malcolm X is definitely the focal point of the documentary. But of course, he was such a major player in the Nation of Islam that you learn a lot about them watching it. And no, guys, Netflix didn't sponsor this episode. I'm just recommending it because I really liked it and I found it really fascinating. And I think you will too.
We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Okay, so getting back into the facts now. So the Nation of Islam says that it was founded on the basis of peace and that its mission is to answer a prayer of Abraham to deliver his people who would be found in servitude slavery in the Western Hemisphere in this day and time. According
This sounds very similar to the Hebrew Israelite doctrine. It's interesting when you actually look into it that they kind of have very similar. It's just that they both have the Nation of Islam believes that they come from Asia, and you have the Hebrew Israelite that believes they come from Israel, which is at the top of Africa. So it's interesting that you have two different groups that believe the origin story of African Americans come from different places. That's interesting.
to the Nation of Islam website, they say, we have always been taught to respect the laws of the land, and we are taught never to carry arms, to make war, or to be the aggressor, for this is against the nature of the righteous. Now, we are taught the principle of divine unity and the universal brotherhood of Islam. Another very surprising and interesting thing about the Nation of Islam, like I briefly mentioned it, but they have an all-male paramilitary wing known as the Fruit of Islam, or the FOI for short. Now, the responsibility of the Fruit of Islam is that of a head of house, which protection, provision, and maintenance of the Nation of Islam. Now, the FOI are militant in the sense that their operations are done as a unit. And the Fruit of Islam is respectful to all, regardless of color, class, or creed. Any member is honest and hardworking and never considers crime as an alternative, nor encroaches on another man's rights to peace and property. Also, it's important.
So here's the thing. Once again, now we're talking about color, right? Race, right? So come to find out that even though Nation of Islam started off as a black nationalist group, that there is no thing about color, right? Because anybody that would know about Nation of Islam would think that this was a primarily African black nationalist also type of a group. But let's go.
That I make it clear that the Fruit of Islam is sometimes confused with the 5%er Nation, aka the 5%ers, which was a splinter group that separated from the Nation of Islam back in the 1960s. But no, they're not the exact same group at all. And finally, I want to look at the flag of the Nation of Islam. When it comes to the flag of the Nation of Islam, it has the symbols of the sun and the moon and the star, and it represents the entire universe. Now, it's also a banner of universal peace and harmony. Because what do the Nation of Islam want? They want freedom, they want justice, they want equal opportunities for jobs. They also want to be allowed to create a separate nation of their own, which is good for agriculture as well as minerally rich. They want equal education. Also, they look to have separate schools for boys up until the age of 16 and girls up until the age of 18, as well as women's colleges and universities. They also strive to have all black children. They also believe that all black children should be taught by black teachers, among many other things. Really, equality and empowering the entire black race. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you in this episode about the Nation of Islam. I really hope you guys found this interesting. You learned something new. I definitely was very fascinated learning more and more about this. I've done research about the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad over the years, but it was definitely really good to do another refresher here and share it with you guys. All right, guys.
Interesting, right? Very interesting. So recently, I came across some Caucasians that have joined the Nation of Islam. And as I look further, even deep, I'm finding out that there are more white converts to Islam in America. Let's get into it. All right.
I didn't become a Muslim in jail. I went to jail after I became a Muslim. And I know that messes with a lot of people's assumptions, because the story that people like to tell is that you hit rock bottom, you go to jail, and then you find God. But that wasn't my story. I had already started searching and questioning everything, already looking at my life like something wasn't right, and then everything fell apart. Jail didn't introduce me to the truth, it exposed me. It showed me who I really was. No distractions and no hiding. And what I realized is this: you don't wait until life breaks you to start changing, because if you don't make the decision first, life will make it for you. So, wherever you're at right now, you don't have to wait. Don't wait for rock bottom. Don't wait for everything to collapse. Start now. Start now.
So it seemed like this has actually done things to help this young man, helped him like kind of deal with his life and things like that. Let's go.
You've got questions about why I follow the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I see them, and so let's address them. I'm not here to argue with anyone. I'm just going to tell you my experience. And it just comes down to results. That's it. It connects dots that nothing else could. I've always been a seeker. I've always been interested in the truth. I do come from a family of Freemasons and Shriners. I am not one. You can believe whatever you want to believe. And I got no information from them. I just started putting things together. Because they hide it in plain sight anyways. So I remember the first time I was reading the Quran, and my dad, he was pissed. He was pissed. I won't get into all that. Me and my father have a good relationship today. I have a great relationship with my family today, even though they don't believe the way that I believe. That's one of the things I've gotten from this too. But it all came down to results. And results on the outside is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about repairing the brokenness that was on the inside. You've got questions about why I follow the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I see them, and so let's address them.
So that's him addressing why he follows. He didn't just go, he could have just went straight to Islam, but he particularly went to the Nation of Islam. Let's go.
And that's how I came into studying the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because it really just resonated with me, the sound and frequency of his voice when I first heard him speaking on an old cassette tape, and then old VHS tapes. I just knew that it was a body of knowledge that I'd never heard of, and that seemed like it was purposely kept from me ever hearing about it.
And it was very logical and obvious to me to like look in places where people were telling you not to look. At that point in time, so the more people told me not to look there, the more I was like, I've already figured this part out. That's BS, so I want to look there. You know what I mean?
It's like finding out your true context. There's something, even if it's painful, even if it's hard to accept, it's like a relief of finally knowing what is wrong. Like what is so wrong with the world. Like there's a comprehensive answer that now you look out into the world and all of it makes sense.
No, it makes me feel like a human again. Actually,
yeah.
I had some really profound experiences where I realized that, I did have to look at myself. Like when Elijah Muhammad, when I'd read things about like the white man is the devil and stuff like that, like I would look at that and think like, dude, that is me. I mean, I had to come to grips with that.
Well, it was the most refreshing thing in my entire life to learn the truth, regardlessly if I was the devil. It was the truth, and that was refreshing.
It's like you can't unhear the truth when you hear the truth. You can't unsee the truth when you see the truth.
Man, let me tell you something. I was surprised to see it myself. I said, what? When I saw it, I said, oh my God, like, what is this, right? Exactly. What the F is this? What is happening, right? But I mean, hey, you can't be mad at them. If this is how they found, the truth, can we really be mad at that? Let's talk about it.
Don't you be afraid. Challenge whatever it is that frightens you. Challenge it. How do you challenge it? Just say, I'm not going to bow down to it. I'm just not going to bow down to it. Your heart beating, your blood pressure's up, but I ain't going to bow down to it. Start with little small things and keep on graduating to the big thing, because the big thing is Satan himself. And if you put your trust in God, you will overcome Satan. And to those who overcome, the tree of life. Do you have faith that you can do it? then if you exercise faith in God will help you challenge your fear. So you got to develop faith. Keep on developing your faith. It's like a seed, but it must be watered, it must be fed, and it will grow strong till you're so strong in faith that whatever you envision, you say be. And it is. I know that's right, because I do it all the time. There is nothing that I want that I cannot achieve. Nothing. You didn't hear me. Nothing. This is where the power is. It's in the dome, brother. Who you got in your dome? You got some chump sitting on the throne in your dome? Overthrow that punk and throw him out. Throw him out. And invite the king to come in and sit on the throne. You say, God bless this home. Christ is the head of this house. How can he be the head of your house if he's not in your head? Don't you want him in your head? See, you jiving. See, if Christ is in your head, do you know how much power you got? Say, let this mind be in you, the same that was in Christ Jesus. Do you know what that means? Put the real king on the throne in your dome.
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm showing the eBay, my bad. But I'm just saying, because I'm trying to delete some of these videos, I'm going to show you guys like that. This is a real movement happening. There are real people that are white that have converted to the Nation of Islam. And they're saying that this is really helping them. Let's go. I could see why this could help people. You know, he's actually, you know, Farrakhan is talking, you know, he's giving some good information, you know. So is this information is not just only for blacks, but you know, it's also could be things that could translate to white people and they can understand. Let's go.
Most people don't expect a white hillbilly from Missouri to say this, but I follow the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And what's even crazier to people is I'm not alone. There's actually a group of us, families, men, women, who are studying, growing, and working on ourselves every day. We're not perfect, but we're becoming disciplined through the self-improvement study guides. We're focused on health, focused on family, focused on becoming better through studying the truth. And a lot of what we're learning goes way deeper than what people think. It's not just religion, it's about how to live, how to think, how to take control of your mind and your body. I'll share more as I go, but for now, just know that this is real and it's changing my life.
It's changing his life. So do we say, you know, well, this can't be true? Well, let's go.
I don't talk about this enough, but the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad through the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan saved me and my family's life. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm talking about real transformation, mentally, physically, spiritually, a foundation that we didn't have before. I went from chaos, addiction, destruction, to structure, discipline, and purpose. Not overnight, but step by step. And what's interesting is a lot of people look at me and think, you cannot be a part of that. You're Caucasian. But I'm living proof that this is not about race the way that people think that it is. This is a universal teaching about truth and alignment with God. And my family is proof. We live this every day. Not perfectly, but intentionally. And at the same time, and this part is important, we've used Dianetics and Scientology to handle another part of this, the mind, the reactive mind, the part of you that's impulsive, emotional, self-destructive, and rebellious. And that combination and spiritual foundation and mental clarity is what allowed me to rebuild my life, a completely new life. And we're still building, still refining, still growing, but now we have structure, we have a direction, and we know what we're working towards.
So he's saying that through Dianetics. So I'm not sure if people are aware, but the Nation of Islam did. I'm not sure if they merged with the Church of Scientology, but there is now like some aspect of Islam that is connected to Scientology. So I don't know if they have changed their doctrine in some way to like in that merging to where you're having a combination of Scientology, and that's how people are getting like into Islam, all races. But I thought this was an interesting topic. Like, wow, there are people of other races because Nation of Islam started off as a black nationalist group. That was the whole thing. So I just thought, wow, like interesting.
This is what reverting to Islam as a fitness trainer taught me about temptation. Working as a one-to-one trainer inside the gym, subhanallah, there's more skin on display than there is equipment. As a revert, I'm coming from a place where formerly there was no accountability put upon my shoulders to not let my imagination run wild. However, as a believing man, there's an obligation put upon us to avert our gaze, as the first level of zina is committed with the eyes. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I am not leaving behind any fitna more harmful to men than women." All this refers to is the biological urges that are inside all men, be it believer or non-believer. Yet there's no greater trial of these than when they're right there in front of you. So I simply did what I could with my current set. I started covering my aura, I started wearing much less revealing clothing, and I stopped training female clients. Why? Because Allah did not forbid Adam to eat from the tree. He told him to not go near it. I learned a real lesson from this. I must develop a distance between me and the fitna, even if because of my circumstance, that distance exists inside my own mind. You spend time around a man who's given in to his desires. Watch how temptation rules his eyes, how he can't even stay in the conversation with you for longer than 10 seconds before trying to line up his next fix, ruminating on his most recent sinful act. There is no presence of moment for this man. It's not about suppressing desires. They're there whether we confront them or not. It's about redirecting that energy towards self-improvement and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I'm gonna say this is this. I'm not mad at them if this is what is helping them in their life to alchemize their energy. I'm not mad. I just thought it was an interesting topic because a lot of people will be like, "Well, what's up? Wait, what?" You know what I'm saying? How could they do this? But these people are saying that this helped them in their life. Other races. Shouts out to the Nation of Islam.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. تكبير. الله أكبر.
More people of the white race are becoming converts to Islam. What does this mean? I think it's interesting. Like, I mean, what does this mean? Because, in America, we have a mainly Christian society, right? How does this affect us, right? Because, I mean, the Christian church has been able to like kind of hold their ground in America, but with more converts over to Islam, what does this mean when it really comes down to culture, etc.? How even white people, if they like all begin to convert to Islam, how is that going to affect how people are even moving in society? Let's go.
I just saw a video that literally made me scream.
People don't expect a white hillbilly from Missouri to say this,
but I follow the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Someone in the comments is gonna ask, does Louis Farrakhan know this? That is dead ass one of the craziest things I have ever heard a white person say. What do you mean you're part of the Nation of Islam? What? Oh my God. Oh, I have tears in my eyes. I need to know how you got involved. I need to get an understanding. Because why did you go to Nation of Islam and not just regular Islam? What about it attracted you?
I mean, I get like why it could be kind of funny, but she kind of was exaggerating. But I'm gonna say this: the one part of the Nation of Islam that could not be ignored is the white man is the devil. You know what I'm saying? And they talked about it. You know, they were able to talk about that. They said, you know what? They agreed about the white man being the devil. So that's one point of contention. I'd be like, well, how could you be a part of that and you know that that's what they think? You know, and that's a part of it. Like that Yaqub, you know, there's a whole guy named Yaqub and the big head scientist, you know, that whole part of it. That's the only part where it's like, okay, how would you join a group that believes that you're the devil?
So everybody's got something to say about Yaqub, but most people don't even know what's actually being taught. So tonight, a few of us Caucasian followers of the Nation of Islam are going live to talk about it. No debates, no arguing, just breaking it down and sharing what we've learned and answering real questions. There's a lot of confusion out there, so we're clearing it up. Tonight, 7 p.m., Instagram Live. If you got questions, bring them. If you want clarity, this is where it starts.
They had a live about Yaqub, y'all. So they addressed it. I didn't get this. I don't have the video of that. I gotta find it. When I do, I swear I'm gonna show it. But wow. And this is a little bit like a taste of it. I don't got the whole thing, but they actually talked about Yaqub.
And that's how I came into studying the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because it really just resonated with me, the sound and frequency of his voice when I first heard him speaking on an old cassette tape, and then old VHS tapes. I just knew that it was a body of knowledge that I'd never heard of, and that seemed like it was purposely kept from me ever hearing about it.
And it was very logical and obvious to me to like look in places where people were telling you not to look at that point in time, you know. So the more people told me not to look there, the more I was like, I've already figured this part out. That's BS, you know. So I want to look there, you know what I mean?
It's like finding out your true context. There's something, even if it's painful, even if it's hard to accept, it's like a relief of finally knowing what is wrong. Like what is so wrong with the world. Like there's a comprehensive answer that now you look out into the world and all of it makes sense.
No, it makes me feel like a human again. Actually,
yeah.
I had some really profound experiences where I realized that, you know, I did have to look at myself. Like when Elijah Muhammad would read things about like the white man is the devil and stuff like that, like I would look at that and think like, dude, that is me. I mean, I had to come to grips with that.
Well, it was the most refreshing thing in my entire life to learn the truth, regardlessly if I was the devil. It was the truth, and that was refreshing.
It's like you can't unhear the truth when you hear the truth. You can't unsee the truth when you see the truth.
I mean, listen, you can't make it up. You cannot make this is a real thing. I don't think it's funny. I think it's a interesting thing that has happened. Like, well, what?
So everybody's got something.
I get a lot of questions asking me, Jason, how did you become a Muslim? When did you become a Muslim? Why did you become a Muslim? And so I want to tell you a little bit about my background and my story. So some of you'll know at this point that my name's Jason. I'm 37. I was brought up in Northern Ireland. I live in Belfast. And I grew up, like many people did here in the north of Ireland, in a Christian environment, in a Christian house. I was taken to church as a child. And as a teenager, I took that decision on myself to be a Christian and to follow it very religiously, you could say. And it was a big part of my life. And I never, ever imagined that I would become a Muslim. I spent the whole of my 20s, I would describe myself looking back as an atheist. I kind of strayed very far away from the church, away from God, kind of lost heart in the Christian message. But I never thought about looking into any other religion. I studied theology as my undergraduate degree, so I was very interested in religion in general, the impact it can have on individuals, on society. But as I said, throughout all my 20s, particularly when I moved to Belfast from the rural area where I'm from, I really lost interest, to be honest. I lived in England for 12 years, and that was a lot of fun. But fast forward to the spring of 2023, and I made a trip to Sierra Leone in Western Africa. I was invited there by a contact that I have, who a friend of mine now, who's a Muslim, Hassan, who runs an organization, a social work organization there, and we made contact through Twitter at the time. My career is I'm a social worker, and that's how we got in discussions with each other. That's how we made contact. And he said, why don't you come out to Sierra Leone and see the work that we're doing here in social work? And I love traveling, and I thought to myself, wow, what an amazing opportunity this would be. I'd never been to Western Africa, and so I went. And I didn't realize that I was going during Ramadan, for one thing, and second of all, whenever my friend picked me up from the ferry, I got into his car and he was playing the Quran through his radio, and it just struck me as something so beautiful. I've been to other Muslim countries before, been to Morocco, been to Egypt, but I don't think I'd ever heard the Quran being played in this way. There was something about it that really struck me, and looking back now, this is when the seed was planted and I started to become interested in Islam.
I mean, this is the whole thing, guys. It's interesting. I'm like, okay. I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't know what to say. I'm trying to find the right words, but it's like, okay, like, all right. But more and more across the world, and then especially in America, there are groups.
Hey everyone. As many of you know, my hometown is Springfield, Missouri. And right downtown, it's a historic building that you've probably been to concerts at. And it's called the Shrine Mosque. That's right, it's a mosque. A mosque is where Muslims go to pray. Today I want to talk about something the people in power have worked very hard to keep hidden from the rest of us. It's the real relationship between the 33rd degree Mason and becoming a Shriner, and what actually happens at that moment. When a man reaches the 33rd degree in Freemasonry and is then invited to join the Shriners, everything changes. At that point, you become what's called a Muslim or Muslim son. This isn't a metaphor, this is the hidden truth. The Shriners wear the fez. They call their temples mosques, and their entire ritual and symbolism draw directly from Islamic tradition and the Holy Quran. It's all hidden in plain sight, right here in Springfield, at the Shrine Mosque, and in every Shrine Mosque across the country. The knowledge of Islam and the Holy Quran that the higher degrees contain is the very knowledge the people in power do not want the public to understand. They've buried inside the craft so only those who climb all the way to the 33rd degree ever see it. And then they move about the world and wage war on Islam everywhere they go. And let me be crystal clear. Anybody who is under the 33rd degree, don't even comment on this. You do not have the knowledge yet, and you haven't been given the light. Only when you become a 33rd degree Freemason, and eventually a Shriner, do you finally receive this sacred knowledge and truly become a Muslim son. So the next time you see a Shriner in his red fez, or you drive past the Shrine Mosque here in Springfield, remember, what looks like just a fraternal club is actually the doorway to something much deeper. The knowledge of Islam that has been protected and hidden in plain sight for those who prove themselves worthy. That's the truth they don't want you to know, until you earn the right to know. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.
Islam as a doorway to Masonry? That Masonry was always a part of Islam, that Islam is actually what the whole Masonry Shriners are really all about. Which would make sense. Earlier, he said that his family was deep into Masonry, which is why he actually really resonated with the Nation of Islam, which is also based in Masonry, guys. And I'm about to show you a video to prove it.
I read Fall of America and I was just blown away. I was at a point in time where I was pretty pissed off. I was pretty pissed off at the state of families overall in this country. I was pretty pissed off at the drug and alcohol problem overall in this country. I just saw all of it. And when I read Fall of America, I thought, this is true. This is exactly what is coming to America. I couldn't be a hypocrite. So it required that I have to pull myself up out of this because I found the answer to this stuff. That's what I felt I had found in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I saw it for what it was, and I didn't care what Elijah Muhammad was saying about white people. I agreed with him. I saw it inside of myself. Okay, great. That's great because now I can look at it. Now I have a solution. Everybody's so soft, man. When I got to sit in a cell in Kansas City, was the first time I'd really spent a decent amount of time in jail. I was the only white boy in there that made it through without checking out. Every white boy that came in, they would punk out and he would check out. He would cry and leave and hit the button. But I was the only one that was able to stay. And you know why? I learned that I didn't need anybody else at that point but God. The white supremacist mentality inside of me was being destroyed by these experiences.
So it took him studying the Nation of Islam and studying Masonry to actually find out the truth through the Nation of Islam about even his own race. Interesting. You know what I'm saying? And listen, all these videos can be found on his pet channel. I don't want to just, because you can like get more information about him, his whole walk into Islam. His channel is called Adam. It's called I'm gonna put it in the chat if you guys want to like, because I mean it could be it's very curious, like wow, you know what I'm saying? But it's a real thing. That's his channel on TikTok. Shouts out to him, and he really is a comedy. And he does like shows on it. They have live streams about it, and this is something that they really. They're not playing about this, and he makes a good point about like Islam being a part of the Masonic. And listen, I haven't heard a lot of people really talk about that. You know, the ties from Nation of Islam and Masonry, Islam itself, and then Masons really like having some level, the Shriners connected to Islam. Interesting, right?
You are the master of your reality, if you can understand that. You live in a fantasy, if you can understand that. Bob Marley said something interesting. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Have no fear for atomic energy, because none of them can stop the time. Stop here. The entire strength of this colonial system, none of them is above nature. When we look at these groups, we are looking at what they are advertising themselves to us as. This is a propaganda and perception game. These groups, they are designed to deceive. There's no truth in them. So as long as you know nature, God, the universe, or should I say this? God, universe, nature. That's your gun. G-U-N. God, universe, nature. Remember that gun. I'm putting a weapon in your hand. That's the gun you fight back. Wow.
This is on that guy's page. So he's listening to Farrakhan. He's listening to KRS-One. Shouts out to KRS-One. And shout out to this guy. You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to him. His name is Adam. Father Niffin, you know. Shouts out to him. But let's get I can't really go any further without sharing the knowledge from Brother Natural Tahuti, who actually goes deep into Elijah Muhammad's teaching and actually discusses the connection of Islam to Masonry. And he has his book discussing that. Shouts out. Let's go. Like, I wanted you to give me the details on that.
Okay, well, I had something specifically planned that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
I actually wanted to read some of the book.
Okay.
So, but first, let me just say peace and blessings to the main people that's going to review this. This is your brother Natural Tahuti. Of course, many of you know me, and those that don't know me, I'm currently incarcerated. I've been falsely accused of a crime that I did not commit. And I'm steadily working on fighting and overturning this case. The courts have been giving me hell because when truth stands, everything else falls. And they know this, but this is the nature of the devil. In any case, since I've been sitting here, this is the second book that I wrote. The first book is The Black Woman is God. That's available on Amazon.com. This book is really special to me because I was once a member of the Nation of Gods and Earths. And as many people know that the Nation of Gods and Earths is a group that came out of the Nation of Islam. It's not the Nation of Islam, but it came out of the Nation of Islam. The name of this book is called Unveiling the Supreme Wisdom, an esoteric analysis of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. What I want to do is actually read a chapter out of the book. It's really short. If we have time, we got so much to say with so little time. But the book starts out in ancient Egypt. And it was important for me to start out in ancient Egypt because the premise of this book is about Elijah's teaching and what many people inside of the Nation of Islam and outside of the Nation of Islam, inside of the Nation of Gods and Earths, outside of the Nation of Gods and Earths, don't know is that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad emphatically did not teach Islam. Many people in the African Senate community do not like to deal with the Nation of Islam because of our African Senate stance. And anytime anybody comes along with an Islamic frame of mind, we shut down. We totally shut down. We don't really want to hear the conversation. We don't want you shoving that down our throat because we understand in the African Senate community the vital role that Islam played in the destruction and the enslavement of African people. We know this to be a fact. And this is the reason why we don't even want to hear the conversation. But in my opinion, I think that this hurts reconstruction of a semblance of a new African people because we cannot stand divided. And I truly believe that the Nation of Islam and the Nation of Gods and Earths in its heart and in its foundation is good, it's righteous people, and I believe that they believe and they are looking for the betterment of African people. This is in my heart. So many people know me from my debate that I had with Dr. Wesley Muhammad, and it was a scathing dissent. I refrained from that because I needed to correct the record. And so after a more forensic study of his teachings, I come to find out a stunning revelation. That what he actually taught was not Islam at all. He was actually teaching us the Assyrian spiritual mystery system of ancient Egypt, but it was disguised and it was hidden under the language of Islam. And that's what many people, even some of the top scholars in the Nation of Islam, do not know this, and many of the brothers in the Nation of Gods and Earth do not know this. But I am standing here to show and prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. And I am so confident of my supposition that I am willing to offer anyone $5,000 to prove me wrong. So anyway, we got so much to say, but with so little time to say it. I just wanted to give you an example from the book. This is chapter 1 called The Fall of Egypt. The Africans of the rich Nile Valley of Egypt were the custodians of what was called in the Egyptian language Shetaneta, meaning the way of the hidden supreme being, or the secret supreme wisdom. It was these early Africans who were responsible for establishing the first high culture along the rich Nile Valley of Egypt. Not only did they create and establish the world's first high culture, but they traveled around the world civilizing and spreading the supreme wisdom, Shetaneta. In fact, Egyptian legends state that the African god-man Asar, who is known by the Greek name Osiris, went around the world teaching the supreme wisdom and civilizing men and women. Quote, Osiris became king of Egypt. In this high capacity, Osiris applied himself to the civilizing of his nation, turning the Egyptians from their previously indigenous and barbarous course of life to a happy and community existence. He taught them agriculture, compiled for them a body of laws for the regulation of conduct, instructed them in the reverencing and worship of the gods, thus establishing Egypt in all the essentials of truth. Having brought his own nation to prosperity and enlightenment, Osiris traveled over the rest of the world, converting peoples to his discipline, not by force, but by the persuasion of reason. Osiris was accompanied on this journey by a procession of nymphs and other super-physical beings who filled the air with magic and song, end quote. The temples of Egypt were sacred places of initiation for the neophyte who dared to ask the right questions. For example, who am I? Where did I come from? What is my purpose? What will become of me when my body withers away? Etc. The African temples were depositories of sacred and secular knowledge. Women and men came from all over the globe to attend the temples. These institutions brought great wealth, fame, and respect to the world's first schools of higher learning. These temples literally operated as the world's first colleges, but far greater was the curriculum as opposed to today's standards. The Africans understood that true education comes from within, as the denotative meaning of the word suggests. The word education comes from the Latin verb educare, which means to bring forth or up and out, meaning the process of developing the inner potential of the soul mind that was yet unexpressed and bringing it up, forth, and out. The most famous university college in ancient Egypt was Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Its fame as a seat of the most profound learning spread far and wide throughout the ancient world because wisdom of its priest teachers were called the mystery teachers of heaven. The very fact that the academy was brought and existed at Heliopolis and prepared individuals for progressive degrees of initiation in the mysteries clearly militates against the ideal so dear to Egyptologists that only the pharaoh king of Egypt was actually able to take the highest initiations that led to becoming a god star. The mystery school's curriculum included 7 grades that were composed of the lesser mysteries and the higher mysteries, all of the 7 liberal arts, including supreme mathematics, my thesis, metaphysics, astronomy, astrology. These 2 disciplines were only one science originally. Ancient curriculum. The women and men who attended these schools were bent on learning every single branch of knowledge of the universe in every unknown dimension of it. Every initiate strives for enlightenment, meaning to become aware of the unseen reality that connects all that is seen. The one reality that expresses itself in multiple expressions called Netzerus, gods. Africans are descendants of these gods and lived at a very high level of awareness that is far beyond anything we could imagine. What we now call magic is in reality high science. Manly P. Hall and his Freemasonry of the ancient Egyptians writes on page 32 to 33 as follows. Magic is too ancient and too universal to be explained away by mirrors, wires, and hinges. In Egypt, we are dealing unquestionably with true manifestations of occult power. The learned author of art magic presents what may be accepted as a reasonably accurate estimation of priests, magicians of old Egyptian mysteries. They were highly educated scientific men. They understood the nature of the lodestone, the virtues of minerals and animal magnetism, which together with the force of psychological impression constituted a large portion of their theurgic practices. They perfectly understood the art of reading the innermost secrets of the soul, of impressing the susceptible imagination by enchantment and fascination, of sending their own spirits forth from their body as clairvoyance under the action of powerful will. In fact, they were masters of the art known as mesmerism, of magnets, gums, herbs, drugs, and fumigations, and employed music to admirable effect. The highly gifted Egyptologist Lenormand acknowledged Egyptian magic as an essential part of their religious philosophy. James Boswick summarizes the power possessed by the Egyptian adepts, stating Egyptian mystics could levitate, walk the air, handle fire, live underwater, sustain great pressure, harmlessly suffer humiliation, read the past, foretell the future, and make themselves invisible and cure disease. End quote. Hundreds of thousands of years of our story went by in peace without a hint of war. No one ever went to prison because Africans did not build prisons. There was no violations of women, children, and elderly folks. Evidence of urbanization and social stratification existed, but warfare was absent. Women's social status was of supreme equality and did not decline for millenniums. The Nile Valley civilizations lived by a moral code called Ma'at. Ancient Egypt was guided by a beautiful concept of unicity, the notion of Ma'at. Ma'at was both a cosmic and earthly law. It applied to every area of a person's life. All of the universe and every part of society was linked to the order of Ma'at. Ma'at, because it is all-embracing, is both simple and complex. Simply defined, Ma'at represents harmony, truth, justice, balance, and right order. As unicity, an all-embracing law that regulated every part of the cosmos and human life. Ma'at can be understood when we understand its operation in different areas of the cosmos and society. In the Pert and Haru, the book of the coming forth by day, states Ma'at existed before creation, operating invisibly before the nethers became visible. But a stink was brewing up in northern Europe, the Caucasus Mountains. Thanks to growing numbers of radiocarbon dates, it is now possible to trace several migratory waves of steppe pastoralists or Kurgan people that swept across prehistoric Europe. Dr. Suzar in her Blackout Through Whitewash on page 72 states, particularly between 2000 and 1500 BC, waves and waves of warlike barbarian whites poured from the Caucasus Mountains, descended upon the civilizations of black people. They ruthlessly killed, pillaged, and burnt wherever they went, leaving a path of death and smothering ruins behind. They ultimately ultimately usurping and destroying these civilizations, end quote. This was the beginning of the end for this high godlike culture and their mystery systems. The common folk were unaware of what was to become of their way of life, but the initiate knew what was to come. In fact, it was predicted and written by the living avatar of Tahuti, Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great. He described a grotesque demise of Egypt in his Asclepian dialogue. He states, then this most holy land, the seat of place consecrated to divinity and temples shall be full of sepulchres and dead bodies. O Egypt, Egypt, fables alone shall remain of thy religion, and these such as will be incredible to posterity, and words alone shall be left engraved in stone, narrating thy pious deeds. End quote. So devastating was the destruction of Egypt and the mystery schools with its vast depositories of knowledge. Nothing of the original was recognized, merely P-horrorposits. The temples that had survived the ravages of time were severed by degenerate priesthood. The secret meanings of the symbols had been lost. The hidden arcanum had departed into the Arabian desert, and the elaborate ceremonies of the state religion had lost the name of action. Hall, quoting Louis Spence, says, how serene was Egypt in her years of empire, calm, dignified, aye, and prosperous, and happy in her rapt contemplation of the divine. No people were ever at once so pious and so contented as were her people, and not until a European hegemony of admittedly inferior type, the polemic, interrupted her visionary quietism, was to confound it. Have we no lesson to learn from Egypt? Aye, the greatest in the world, the knowledge of the divine introspection which alone can give man the likeness of the divine? End quote. Kemet, Egypt's real name, which change reflects its new Asian and European character. Chancellor Williams states, since Asians and some Europeans were heavily concentrated in Lower Egypt, it became relatively easy for them to appropriate exclusively for themselves not only the name Egyptian, but also all achievement by blacks in Upper Egypt and the rest of the Ethiopian Empire. Holding the seacoast and blocking African contact with the rest of the world, these white Egyptians were able to perpetuate the myth so successfully that even today, many remarkable achievements by blacks elsewhere over the continent are attributed to Egyptian influence. There is something amusing here too, for when they refer to Egyptian influence on black institutions, they are in fact pointing out black influence on black institutions throughout Egypt. The students of the mystery schools were repeatedly prosecuted and persecuted on pain of death. This went on into the religious institutions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, put the flames out on the supreme wisdom. But can the flames of eternal light ever be put out? The ancient masters were so skillful that a great deal of the Egyptian literature was infectiously cloaked, and its true significance was only known by secret society masters and their initiates. The secrets are for the worthy only. The unworthy have no right to partake in its sacred rites. The supreme wisdom, Shetanetta, was so ingeniously concealed that the greatest European thinkers were befuddled. The African priest, priestess, scientists went under disguise and traveled to other lands creating philosophical and spiritual systems while hiding the supreme wisdom in the body of the new literature. When Egypt destroyed, the supreme wisdom disappeared, yet survived in the writings of the religions of its enemies, and can only be realized by those initiated. And that's the end of the first chapter.
Wow.
So, do you have any questions?
I just want to give you a hand clap. That's a beautiful. I mean, so this is really about the fact that, okay, so is this saying that Islam or that that it is based in Egyptian mythology or Egyptian teachings, that the whole Islam?
Okay, so two things is happening here. So we're talking about Elijah Muhammad's teaching, which he calls a new Islam. This particular new Islam that he is teaching is absolutely has no relationship to the Islam of 1400 years ago, so-called revealed by Prophet Muhammad. And there is no relations to the two. Even though he calls it Islam, the thing that people are missing is the word that goes before the Islam. He says, this is a new Islam, meaning it's not Islam at all. So a lot of people get caught up in the fact that he calls it Islam. But what I'm saying, he is not actually teaching you Islam. What he was teaching you was the Nile Valley system of the Assyrian mystery system. He cloaked it under this language called New Islam. So what I did in this book, I've uncovered his esoteric language, his symbolic language, because everything that he did was related to symbolism. And I have ingeniously been able to decipher the language, and I'm going to show you directly that everything that he talked about pointed to the Nile Valley. Even his tribe of Shabazz. Because many brothers say, who is this tribe of Shabazz? I've read all of the African-centered material that you can think of. I've read radical European scholars, and I've never came across any group of people by the name of Shabazz. So I said to myself, where does Elijah Muhammad get this stuff from? Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark, Ivan Satima, Jacobs Carruthers,
and the list,
boys.
yeah,
None of these men.
They talk about the tribe of Shabazz. So where does the tribe of Shabazz come from?
So that's going to be a heavy surprise for the people. I'm going to say that the tribe of Shabazz comes directly from the rich Nile Valley of Egypt. And so, what is your proof, Natural Tahuti? What is your proof? And that part I'm not going to reveal until you get the book. You got to get the book. I'm going to show and prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. When I finish showing it to you, you're going to say, okay, that's the secret. Because, again, like I said, I've read Sir Godfrey Higgins. I've read Professor Albert Churchwood. I've read all of the radical Europeans that was writing scholarship about ancient Egypt that was willing to tell the truth. I've read all of the African scholarship from our story, from our brothers and sisters that took this mission into their own hand. And none of them, there is not one epigraphic evidence to show forth and prove written in any papyrus. There are no rocks, there is no graffiti in Arabia, there is no writing on the temples of Egypt. Nowhere will they talk about this tribe of Shabazz. So how is you, Natural Tahuti, confident that you're going to show people that the tribe of Shabazz actually came out of the rich Nile Valley of Egypt? What do you know that none of these scholars have uncovered?
So what made you even get into this? Like, what made you even think that, this has to be connected to the Nile Valley? There has to be connected to, what made you even come up with this concept? What was the trigger?
The trigger was studying African-centered material. When I began to study the teaching, the scholarship of Dr. Ben, I started studying, I've been listening to Dr. John Henry Clark. I'm listening to my brother, Professor James Smalls. I'm listening to all of our great scholars and elders who showed us I'm honorably standing on, because without them, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I started going back thinking about this stuff, and I said, wait a minute. All of the religions of the world can be traced back to ancient Egypt. What makes this one any different? That's when my third eye opened up, and I said, oh, wait a minute. We're looking at this the wrong way. Because I was on the campaign bashing the Nation of Islam many years ago. I mean, all you got to do is go and view the debate that I had with Dr. Wesley Muhammad. I gave a scathing dissent of NOI philosophy because I was actually angry at the fact that I was a part of this teaching many years ago, and then I started saying, wait a minute, something is not right. It's not adding up. But after that debate with Dr. Wesley Muhammad, I had to really go back and think about these things. And so as my studies, and I started studying, I started thinking about Nile Valley, and I said, wait a minute, the scribes of Nile Valley, Egypt, they wrote allegorically, they wrote stories, myths, and fables, where the storyline, where the people, places, and things had an esoteric meaning. So that's when the stunning revelation came upon me. I was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. The ancient scribes wrote this way. That's when I said, wait a minute, that's what Elijah's doing. He's writing an allegorical story. These stories, some of these stories about Yaakov and the tribe of Shabbat, they're not literal. These stories actually have hidden symbolic meanings. And that's when I started waking up and said, okay, let me do a more forensic study. And when I did a forensic study, I was amazed. And I'm so thankful of the ancestors that actually guided my pen and guided my Ori. I'm grateful. Yes.
Yeah. So when you look back, you have a Khalid Muhammad, and he was a Nation of Islam member, but he eventually, toward the end of his career, started to be more Nile Valley centered. Why do you think that is?
And it's crazy because I thought about that. Not only him, Dr. Naeem Akbar. And then when Naeem Akbar came out of the Nation of Islam as well. All of these great men came out of the Nation of Islam.
And didn't Malcolm X also go to Egypt as well when he
Malcolm X went to Egypt. You see, so we're not giving the whole story. You know, we're giving this story that he went to Egypt and he went to Mecca and he became an Orthodox Muslim. But we're not really giving the whole story. There's something that we're not being told. So I'm going to say that Khalid Muhammad, these brothers, they were high in rank in the Nation of Islam. And I'm not so sure whether high-ranked members are taken off to the side and they are relieved of their blindfold. I don't know that part. I can't say that. But I think, to Elijah Muhammad's credit, he made us memorize the lessons by heart. And what actually happens when you memorize these lessons by heart, you're actually activating your ancestral memory bank. So there is something psychic going on when we're not just memorizing the lessons, because in Nana Yoga is about the intellect. And from studying the stories, the rituals, the same thing with Yoruba. From studying the stories and the rituals, what actually happens is a faculty of the spirit opens up. A faculty of the mind opens up. I call it the ancestral memory banks. Some people call it the Akashic records. And that actually opens up and guides your Ori, guides your consciousness into these more expansive spiritual systems, whether it be in West Africa, Yoruba, Vudan, all taking you all the way back to the Nile Valley of Egypt.
And even in Ifa, I think that they say that these people were the priests, or the actual Nile Valley priests that actually fled and went to Ile Ife. So it's interesting that you draw that connection even with the Yoruba Ifa, as well as Wudan of Benin. Do you think that even the Elijah Muhammad, the creator, not the Elijah Muhammad, but the Fard Muhammad, where do you think his role comes into play when it comes to bringing the Nile Valley information to Elijah Muhammad? Or do you think that Elijah Muhammad was able to do this himself, separate from Farad?
So there's something that I reveal in the book that many people don't know, but Elijah never hid this. Excuse me, pardon, sir. Think of his name, Master Fard Muhammad. Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now let's take Noble Drew Ali.
Right.
What is him? Ego tripping? Who walks around calling himself master? Who walks around calling himself honorable? Who walks around calling himself noble? We took this thing on face value.
And you know, no one even picked up on that. No one picked up on the fact that they had these titles, right? And I don't think are these titles existent in Islam?
No, they don't exist in Islam. And people are not picking up on this stuff. They're just dismissing it. They're just dismissing, oh, yeah, and they said Islam, you know, they're just dismissing it. And this is what I'm saying is hurting African reconstruction. Because instead of us fighting against each other, African Senate, Nation of Islam, Gardener, we should be uniting as a family.
Right.
We don't have time to be disuniting with one another. So this is why it was important for me to take up this work, since I was such an advocate of this separatism. I gotta correct my wrongs.
I read Fall of America and I was just
Hey everyone, as many of you know.
I gotta say that I was wrong when I debated Dr. Wesley Muhammad on this. I created something that I need to correct. Because instead of fighting against him, we should be uniting and finding what we have in common. All of our great leaders tell us that.
Right.
You know? So, in any case, let me get back to this. Master. These are actual titles that these men earned. Now, where did they earn these titles? Through my research, what I found out that these guys were 33-degree Master Masons.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
In the early days, starting back from the 1800s, in the early 1900s, it was those brothers that were Freemasons that was actually going back and retrieving the Now Valley Civilization's teachings. It was those brothers. Prince Hall, the first black Freemasons in this country. They also, once you become a 33rd or 32nd and 33rd degree, you become what is called a Shriner.
Yes.
A Shriner is when you earn the title either noble or honorable. When the most honorable Elijah Muhammad kept telling the people, he said, I have a 3rd grade education. They thought that he was really illiterate, that he only had a 3rd grade education. He was talking symbolically. He was talking Masonically. It is the Shriners who talk in grades. When you're in Freemasonry, they talk in degrees. But in Shriners, when they say, well, I'm in the 3rd grade, that means that he was a 3rd degree Master Mason.
Wow. And nobody even picked up on that.
They didn't pick up on that. And because he was under oath, he couldn't explicitly give everything to you in full detail. He had to speak in twilight language. You follow me?
Yeah.
So this is what these guys were up to. But it was those men back in those days. You got to think about it. In the early 30s. You know, many people were not even trying to, they didn't even want to identify with the term Africa. You know, and then we had, and I think it was in 1923, this guy came out with Tarzan, and that just messed up our whole vision of what Africa was. We would see scared Africans running in the jungles, looking like savages with bones in their noses, tying up white explorers and putting them in a pot for dinner.
Right.
So we didn't even want to identify with this.
Yeah.
And you see?
You know what's interesting? There's a blog, a IRL streamer called I Show Speed. He's actually in Africa right now, and he's touring Africa. And with the current FBA, Foundational Black American situation, where you have a lot of people like that are kind of that have been like going against Africa. It's interesting because he's kind of changing the narrative, like he's actually going around Africa and showing Africa is not just people just in teepees and huts. It's a developed country with a rich culture, and he's going into 20 different countries on the continent, and people are crying and they're really like looking back like maybe I should go back to Africa, because the narrative so far lately has been that people do not even want to go back to Africa at all. But lately people have been kind of changing their mind, because with Tariq Nasheed and the FBA movement, it has like kind of made people like shun away from Africa. But it's interesting how that whole narrative has changed people's minds.
It's sad. We're probably going to get cut off real soon, so I want to say peace and blessings to the people if I get cut off. But let me just speak to that real quick. I think it's a really sad, and it's actually an attack on all of the elders, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Finn, Jacob Carruthers, all of these men that stood up on the front line that went to war with academia to prove our connection with these great African civilizations. That is an insult to our ancestors. And how could you go against our ancestors like that? You are actually committing a crime. So if you're out there and you're expounding on this rhetoric, man, you got a heavy price to pay.
So that was the video I did with Brother Natural Tahuti, where he actually discussed his book. And if you get a chance, please check his book out. It's on Amazon. It's called Unveiling the Supreme Wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's Teachings. And he goes into the connection between the Nile Valley and the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, which I think is interesting because it seems like a lot of these white people that are joining the Nation of Islam are joining based on the understanding of its connection to Masonry.
Most people don't expect a white hillbilly from Missouri to say this, but I follow the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And what's even crazier to people is I'm not alone. There's actually a group of us, families, men, women, who are studying, growing, and working on ourselves every day. We're not perfect, but we're becoming disciplined through the self-improvement study guides. We're focused on health, focused on family, focused on becoming better through studying the truth. And a lot of what we're learning goes way deeper than what people think. It's not just religion. It's about how to live, how to think, how to take control of your mind and your body. I'll share more as I go, but for now, just know that this is real and it's changing my life. I don't talk about this enough, but the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad through the guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan saved me and my family's life. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm talking about real transformation, mentally, physically, spiritually, a foundation that we didn't have before. I went from chaos, addiction, destruction, to structure, discipline, and purpose. Not overnight, but step by step. And what's interesting is a lot of people look at me and think, you cannot be a part of that. You're Caucasian. But I'm living proof that this is not about race the way that people think that it is. This is a universal teaching about truth and alignment with God. And my family is proof. We live this every day. Not perfectly, but intentionally. And at the same time, and this part is important, we've used Dianetics and Scientology to handle another part of this, the mind, the reactive mind, the part of you that's impulsive, emotional, self-destructive, and rebellious. And that combination and spiritual foundation and mental clarity is what allowed me to rebuild my life, a completely new life. And we're still building, still refining, still growing, but now we have structure, we have a direction, and we know what we're working towards.
So the Nation of Islam has also worked with the Church of Scientology. I'm not sure if you guys are aware that there's like a connection between the American Nation of Islam and now the Church of Scientology. So he said that with the combined effort of Islam and Dianetics, that's where I think that this new crowd of white people joining Nation of Islam are getting into it. It's like they're combining the two and it's helping their life out. So if it's helping them, can we really be mad at them?
This is what reverting to Islam as a fitness trainer.
Mormonism is Islam for white people. Now, a lot of Mormons and Muslims will get mad at me for saying that, but I feel like if the average person has an objective look at both of these religions and their history, they will definitely see the comparisons. Like, just listen to this. I was an average, everyday guy living in a small town. But then suddenly, an angel approached me and told me that there had been a great apostasy. See, turns out, the original teachings of Christ and his apostles were completely lost. And I, yes I, have to bring them back. So I have this whole new set of scriptures. And they're like the Bible, but they're better. In order to be safe, me and all my followers have to move to this new town to keep out all the unbelievers. And before you ask, yes, I do need multiple wives. And yes, some of them have to be underage. That was most of the comparisons that I could see between Mormonism and Islam. But if anyone has anything else, please let me know in the comments.
I had Brother Johnson on that said more men, that the actual true Mormons were not white, but they were black, aka Mormon, more man, right? Mormon, right? And then that Smith, Joseph Smith, was really a white man, a black man, and that the whole Church of Mormons was black people, was based on a black guy. Now, I think it's interesting when you have a group of people that are white that are joining the Nation of Islam, but then there's also this truth of the idea of this whole thing called Yaqub, right? So let's get into the story of Yaqub. Let's go.
In case you guys didn't know, this is Yaqub. He is the... In case you guys didn't know, this is Yaqub. He is the creator of all white people. Praise.
Now, this is a white guy that's a transgender. I don't know what is going on. There's a lot of like, man, this new generation is interesting. I don't even know what to say, but let's go.
In case you guys didn't know, this is Yaqub. He is the creator of all white people. Praise be to him. Thank you, Yaqub, for everything you've done for society. If you know about the Nation of Islam, this is who created the white peoples, and I think maybe 3,000 years ago. I don't really know. This was a picture they found on his iPhone. Obviously, but it was like in like an ancient Egyptian like pyramid or something, you know, before like the
what
Jews
the hell
went off to Africa because they were black.
What is going on? This is the type of crazy shit. What is going on? What is happening?
Yaqub.
Child.
Have you ever heard of the story of Yaqub, the mad scientist who, according to the Nation of Islam, actually created white people? Yeah, I know it sounds like something straight out of a comic book or a sci-fi movie, but for real, this is a central belief in the Nation of Islam theology. So here's the breakdown. Yaqub, sometimes known as the Big Hit Scientist, was supposedly born around 6,600 years ago on the island of Patmos. That's right, the same island from the Bible's book of Revelation. And this guy wasn't your average kid. Legend has it that Yaqub had a gigantic big head and an even bigger brain, bursting with genius-level intelligence. He was so brilliant, they say that by age 18, he'd already mastered every branch of science. But Yaqub had a bit of a dark streak. He wasn't content with just being a prodigy. Nope. Yaqub had ambitions that were pretty hardcore. He wanted to create a new rebellious race of people. Why? Well, he reportedly saw himself as a rival to God, determined to build a people who would rule through cunning, manipulation, and deception, basically the ultimate villains. So Yaqub gathered thousands of his followers to set sail and landed on an island where he could begin his twisted genetic experiments. Through careful selective breeding, think ancient genetic engineering meets mad scientist type vibes, he started...
Man, what? The whole story is like, what? But this is that is something that exists in the Nation of Islam. So it's interesting to find out when you have. So how do you have that belief that this scientist came up with white people from Somalia, and there's like this whole story. I'm trying to find the full story about the Yaqub. I'm trying to find the whole thing. Hold on, let me see if it has the rest of it, because it got cut off. Hold on, let me find out the rest of the Yaqub. Let me find the rest of the Yaqub story, because how would white people then become a Muslim if that is what people believe, that there's a Yaqub and stuff, you know? Hold on, let me get the story of Yaqub. Because he got into it, but the story and real history of Yaqub. Let's get into it, because I'm like, okay, how is it that there's this whole thing, and then like, no, that doesn't, like, we're cool with that. that's okay, you know. This is what we're gonna believe. We are okay. Let me get into. Let me find the. All right. Let's get into it. Trying to find, because some of you might end up finding some stuff that's like trying to be rhetorical and funny, but this is a real belief of the Nation of Islam, that there's a thing like a person called Yaqub that was a scientist. So I'm like, okay, y'all. So that doesn't matter, like that. It doesn't matter that this is that's a one part of the main beliefs of this group. And they're like, yeah, and they're like, we are evil and we believe it, and I'm like, wow. So, you know, but the last thing I'm gonna do is get into the Shriners and its connection to Islam. Hey, listen, come up. I sent you the link, young Riaz, because I want you to like, because I'm not a Muslim, so maybe you could like expound on the. You're Sunni, but I know you probably have like some understanding of the new influx of white people into Islam and what might be the reason. But let's get into the whole Yaqub story, because I'm like, what? Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up?
I'm listening. So yeah, that's interesting. I actually heard about this story type thing, but also, some of the stuff in our type thing, it kind of goes against what mainstream Islam, the community I belong to, right? Yeah, there's similar stuff, but some things that kind of goes against it, actually. Like basically deviates, though.
So you're from Asia, right?
Yeah.
So are you aware of the Asiatic black man, like this whole Asia?
Yes, the first man on earth is black, so I'm aware of that.
The connection of black people to Asia?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe they were the first people of Asia, just like everyone else developed later.
Okay. And is Islam prominent to are you Filipino or what's your race?
Pakistani. I'm an Indo-Persian though, so basically ancestry-wise, I belong to the Persian ancestry, but the Persians I belong to is Sunni Persians though, so they
So
just came.
are Persians considered Asian, or are they considered, what are they considered?
They're considered Asian though. Persians are considered like their own kind of group of things. Some Persians, right, are they some Persians are just Persians, and some Persians have Arabic ancestry. So the ones with Arabic ancestry, some of them became Iranis though. So there's a difference between an Iranian and a Persian though. Yeah, the terms is interlinked, interchangeable, but truthfully, actually, in a way, in some kind of way, they're kind of different. They're like slowly becoming a new set of people. Just like with me, I'm Indo-Persian, so I'm half Indian, half Persian.
So
basically,
Farad Muhammad, who is the
yeah,
person that helped create the Nation of Islam, came from Saudi Arabia into Detroit. That's where the Nation of Islam started. And then he taught Elijah Muhammad, which was a black man.
yeah.
And then now you get then I don't know where he also taught this story of Yaqub. So I'm gonna play this story, and I want you to tell me, like,
It's kind of okay. It's kind of like this in a way, like
they draw a picture,
Muslim.
but I'm thinking like a big head they'll say that Somalian people and Ethiopian people have big heads, but they drew it like this. I don't know why, but that's an indication of a Somalian or a Ethiopian. So let's get into the story real quick. I'm gonna fast forward it, and I want to understand, because if a person from Saudi Arabia would come with this story, where did he come with the story from? Let's go.
Yeah,
you may
but
recognize this man. His name is
Farad is
Yaqub.
actually a white guy who is pretending to be someone else.
Huh?
Some say though Farad is actually the founder, right? They say Farad is actually a white guy, right? He just pretended to be someone that he's not, and he changed his name many times.
So he wasn't even a person from Saudi Arabia. He was
No, he
actually
was
white.
not. That's just the story they say. He was actually a white guy who changed his name. He went under different aliases. So basically, they say that he originally was in the Moorish Science Temple of America, and then basically, over time when they took that down, he just decided to create that when he met, Elijah in jail or something like that. I read the files. I read the CIA files on them.
So could Farad Muhammad have been like a CIA agent putting disinformation into the black community?
Yeah, he could have though actually, but also though, to be honest though, the real Islam is actually Sunni to me though actually, like basically, the Moors actually, like actual real Islam, the one I'm practicing was actually brought to America by the Moors. The Moors were the first to bring it here. It's just that wasn't, it wasn't just, widely spread like that. It was just only like certain sections, Then actually, though, when Malcolm X though became, Muslim and stuff like that, and he helped spread the influence over it. So when he traveled and when he came back and when he became Sunni, so that's when basically, mainstream Sunni, became the Sunni community became more and more mainstream, though. Actually,
wow. So do you think that the Nation of Islam was probably placed to break up the Moorish Science Temple? Because Moorish science existed before Nation of Islam. Do you think that this breed of Islam was brought in to break up the whole Moorish, which is more connected to the Shriners and Masonry, and then now you have this other breed that was taught by a white guy, or you're saying that he was really a white guy and not a Saudi Arabian?
he wasn't. He said he was, but he wasn't though. Actually, I read the files actually on him though.
There's a CIA file on him.
Yeah, there's like a full-on CIA file on him. I read them. I read those files actually. They say he was a white guy, right? Pretending to be someone he wasn't though, and he just met him in jail though, and then slowly though, like he just told him though, and that's how he got it to where he got him. And then they say he disappeared though, or something like that though. So
that sounds like a CIA agent. He would have to disappear. He do something, he say whatever, and then this thing takes off, and then he disappears. Interesting. So that whole
Yeah,
thing,
because also
right?
that in a
So
way,
could the
the
nation now? Oh my
sorry, I
God,
was
could the
just
nation of
gonna
Islam
say
be a
that.
whole CIA op?
Yeah, but also the in a way that you actually wonder though. Actually, I'm not hating on them as well. They
Let it
just
being known. Like,
to,
I mean, I don't want to take anything away from the Nation of Islam. Shout, I love the name. They have done
I'm
some
cool.
very powerful things, but could its leader have
I
possibly
just
been
leave it
a
as the
CIA
bait.
operative?
Oh, okay. You have a point. I was also gonna say, look, I'm just gonna leave it at that, with them, right? I just don't. I just basically just be cool, though, I'm not gonna be nuts like that. But also at the same time, I know what I think, but at the same time, some things I just don't need to stay like that, right? And also,
Right,
though,
because you
like
don't want to piss
everyone,
nobody. I get it. That could be. It
yeah,
could
and
piss
also
people
that you
off,
actually
and next
went.
thing you know, you got people like.
It's not in my place to do that. It's only God's place to do that because I'm actually a Muslim, that type of thing. And also, though, basically, in a way, though, right? You actually wonder, right? That's why you actually notice the NOI hasn't really grown like that. They're just basically they are what they are. The original NOI actually ended in 1975 because the son, right? The son of Elijah, right? W.D. Muhammad the Warith, right? His son Wallace, right? When he became Warithin Muhammad, all right? When he actually became Sunni, right? He took over the organization, he restructured it, changed the name, and basically moved away from what, his father and the founder, they were teaching, and they ended the original organization. It was just that Farrakhan just restarted it after he just decided to, break away.
Really?
Yeah, because
That
the
what happened?
So the NOI you thought that was just going on for a long, long time though is not actually the original. They claim they are, but they're more like they're kind of like a different one though. Actually, they're like they're kind of
So
different.
that probably connects that probably just is the reason for the connection to the Church of Scientology. And now you see that there's white people joining the Nation of Islam, and then they're connecting
Because the original
Scientology,
NOI.
Masonry, and
Yeah, because the original NOI actually ended in 1975, actually, because when the son, though, right, when, like Elijah's son, right, when he took over the organization, he came back, though, right, and when he did, he basically, he changed, basically the way it was structured, the way everything, and it brought it more closer to the mainstream community, and he changed the name as well. So, he changed the name and he changed the way they practice as well. And it's back according to actually proper Islamic teachings.
wow.
It's just that Farrakhan just restarted it. He restarted it though as a different thing though, like basically, but he claims it though as a continuation.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's just how it is. To be honest though, I just, with them though, I just be cool, It's not my place to, judge type thing. That's just God to do with, I don't hate on that. I'm just gonna be like, look, I just be cool, that type thing. I'm not gonna take away, people choose to free to live how they want to live, but and
Right.
in this time, this world,
This
in
is
this
not
world is
us
gonna
trying to
end.
attack the Nation of Islam. This is just like the information, this is the information he knows. But I wanted to get into this story of
It's
Yaqub
just
because
information I know, and based on
where
how
do
I
you think this
research
story
too.
came from? Like, because did he make this up, or let's look?
Or Yaqub, or Yaqub, or Yaqub. He lived 6,600 years ago, and if you are white, he is your father. Not only that, you're also Greek, but we'll get to that. Yaqub, as we know him, first appeared in the writings of Wallace Fard Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam, simplified as the NOI, or NOI, which is an offshoot of mainstream Islam with a focus on black nationalism, and was expanded upon by his successor Elijah Muhammad, most specifically in his chapter.
So why would a white man start a black nationalist? Interesting.
Wait, that is interesting. No, but I was also saying this as well. You know what they also say though as well, right? They also say so Elijah's teacher. There's this Emedy teacher, right? Basically, I can't remember this guy's name, right? So you know, there's this group of Muslims, right? They call themselves Emedy, but they're not actually. Me and Sunnis, me and the rest of the Sunni community don't consider them like that. They're called like Emedis, right? And they deviated, and basically like when you actually deviate too much, it becomes it becomes shirk basically. It becomes shirk and kafir and stuff like that. And I'm not like basically called. It's not my place to say that, but actually based on what they're saying, and if you hear their teachings and you compare the teaching what I believe, what they believe, you can actually see they're going against what was actually they're contradicting that, and that type of thing. So they can say it, but actually though, in a way spiritually, though, the way God sees them though, the way God sees it though, it's like, they can say it, but at the same time God don't see it like that to you.
So
So
it's considered shirk in in Islam, in
yeah,
true
it is,
Islam.
but it's not for me to throw that label around because look, I can say this or that, but look, I'm flawed myself. I've got my own sins though, right? And I don't want my own sins to be exposed and people to speak on that type of thing. That's why I just basically focus on me. I have to focus on my own relationship. But this is just based on information I know, what I've found and what I researched as well. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm not gonna go too deep into it. I'm just gonna get into this whole.
Sorry.
All right, let me play.
Making of Devil in his 1965 book, Message to the Black Man in America, which outlines the role of Yaqub in making the white devil race. To get the full picture of Yaqub, I would like to share his life story with you. Although the following story is not the same as the original story outlined by the Noi, as it expands upon a few extra plot elements such as the nature of Yaqub's origin. This is the most complete story of Yaqub I can find, and it is my personal favorite iteration. The story of Yaqub begins with aliens and the Hollow Earth. Thousands of years ago, many alien groups came to Earth after leaving their planet. Not much is known about their original planet. We only know that it was destroyed by evil, forcing the aliens to flee. These aliens took up residency within the Hollow Earth, also known as Agartha, as humans were already living on the surface at this time. These surface humans all belonged to the Ebenoid tribe, and white people did not exist. This was around or before 4600 BC. The alien visitors were able to live in the center of the Earth because there is an inner sun, and from this Hollow Earth they were able to establish great civilizations. The most prominent alien group living within the Hollow Earth were known as the Shiuk. The Shiuk are dark-skinned, large-headed humanoids. Inside these large heads, the Shiuk have oversized and extremely dense brains, making them far more intelligent than your average human. The Shiuk did occasionally interact with the surface humans, and were seen by humans as mystics, prophets, and sages due to their immense knowledge and odd appearance. The Shiuk had a leader named King Fukor, who had a daughter, Princess Rehia. He also had two brothers, Amo and Yushak. Yushak had a bitter jealousy of his brother, King Fukor. His other brother, Amo, loved and married a woman from the surface, and due to this was exiled to the surface, which is a serious punishment, as remaining in the Hollow Earth allows the Shiuk to remain practically immortal, whereas banishment to the surface will result in an eventual death from aging, as all humans eventually face. The Shiuk are not the only alien race in the Hollow Earth, however, as there is another alien people within the Hollow Earth known as the Sinine. The Sinine, like the Shiuk, are humanoids with large heads. However, their heads are coned. The Sinine are led by one King Lamsa, who has a daughter named Princess Lucina. He also has a son named Prince Atif. There's also a third race living within the Hollow Earth known as the Samin, who are grotesquely fat, human-elephant hybrid creatures that are created from grafting the evil from the Sinine. And due to this relationship, the Sinine people are responsible for quelling and policing the Samin, as they are a very violent species. One day, the Samin attacked and raided Shiuk villages, stealing resources and food. Upon hearing this, King Fukor sent a telepathic message to King Lamsa, telling him that the Sinine were lacking on their Samin wrangling duties and must drive them away from Shiuk lands. King Lamsa mobilized quickly and was able to drive out the Samin at Fukor's behest, although tensions between the tribes remained. In order to make peace, Lamsa and Fukor decided to create a...
You know what? 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 This is a belief? Who made this? Somebody made this. Now the Scientology church believe in like Scientology, like this. Did L. Ron Hubbard? Okay, let me be quiet. This is going into some weird CIA like level, cause what is this? Hold on, let me finish the story because I had no idea that this was a belief of the Nation of Islam. I did not know this, but this is getting okay.
Marriage pact, marrying Sinine Princess Lucina to King Fukor and Shiuk Princess Rehia to Lamsa's son Prince Atif, which succeeded in creating a temporary peace. However, all was not well in the Agarthan Hollow Earth, as Lucina was deeply unhappy with this marriage arrangement. She felt like an outcast among the Shiuk and hated their laws and people, and had a hatred for King Fukor. You know who else has a hatred for Fukor? That's right, his brother Yushak. For some reason, Fukor seems widely hated. Lucina and Yushak met, and through their shared hatred of Fukor began an affair behind his back. They would meet at Amo's house on the surface to carry out this affair, with Amo seemingly cool with his brother using his house as a sex hotel. And it is at this house where he was born. The man, the scientist, the demon, the demiurge, the father of all albinoids, Yakub. Yakub was no ordinary child, even for a Shi'ak or a Sinin, as his head was twice the size of a human's head. Yakub also had 2 brains, doubling his already massive Shi'ak brain capacity. Yakub himself would not live within the hollow earth, as his parents' affair was a great violation of Shi'ak and Sinin laws and customs, forcing the new family to remain on the surface. So Yakub spent his early years living in his uncle Amo's house near modern-day Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Fukor, however, soon found out about this affair and sent his troops to the surface to find the family and had Yushak arrested and put to death for his actions. Lucina was allowed to live due to her now having a child to care for, but was barred from ever returning to the Hollow Earth. Overwhelmed by these punishments, her new child, and the death of her lover, Lucina committed suicide, leaving Yakub as an orphan in the care of his uncle Amo. Yakub's life is already horrifically tragic, witnessing death and sorrow over things he has no control over, abandoned by his people and scorned by those on the surface. This is where the seeds of crackerdom are first sown. Yakub, traumatized by the death of his parents, develops a deep resentment of the Shi'ak people, and eventually begins to hate all peoples with dark complexions like the Shi'ak, seeing them all as responsible for his parents' deaths. Yakub begins school at the age of 4, and at school, Yakub starts getting bullied for the immense...
I'm sorry, I did not know this was such an elaborate story. This is, wow. What? So this, okay, I'm sorry. Let's hear the rest. Let me be quiet. Okay. What? What? I didn't know this was like this detailed. Let's go.
The size of his head and his huge ego, hurting his self-esteem and making him hate the Ebenoid peoples even more, and deepening his desire for revenge. At age 6, Yakub, while playing with magnets and observing the laws of attraction and repulsion, gets the idea to create a tribe of people that would exist as the antithesis to the Ebenoid surface humans. A tribe who would be cruel, deceptive, remorseless, and be lacking divinity, being a magnetic opposite of the Ebenoid peoples who are divine, kind, and empathetic. Yakub, floored by this idea, told his uncle, "Uncle, when I get to be an old man, I'm going to make a people who shall rule you." Yakub in this moment understood his life's terrible purpose, to make trouble, spread death and destruction, and be the enemy of all Ebenoid people, a vile demiurge to all those who walk the earth, with an army of demons at his back. In order to accomplish this, Yakub understood that he must become a master of genetics, biology, and science. Fortunately for Yakub, his double brains made him a child prodigy, and he was outperforming all the surface humans in school. By age 18, Yakub had completed all colleges and universities of his nation. While at these colleges, Yakub was mockingly referred to as the big-headed scientist. You can probably figure out why. While in college, Yakub developed and began preaching a new religion he created, simply known as tricknology. He also wrote a holy book of tricknology called Tricknology 120 Degrees. Yakub promised all those who followed tricknology would eventually come to rule the earth for 6,000 years and have complete dominion over the peoples of earth. While he was ultimately correct in this prophecy, those who followed Yakub at the time were oblivious to the dark truth of the prophecy. And Yakub...
What? So, what? I didn't know that this was a belief. I did not know. When I listened to this, it's like, what?
Wow, that was interesting.
I didn't even know it went this deep. I just thought that he just created like the people. I didn't know there was like this whole family in the inner depth of the earth, and they had big heads, they had cone heads, they had elephant people. The elephant people was whatever, and they merged with these. What?
Yakub's real plans for them. Tricknology became quite popular as time went by, with many people starting to follow Yakub, as they were deeply...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say though, right? I kind of get you on that too, though. Even I researched into those files as well, and I was just like, wow, this is interesting type thing, and actually realized the truth type thing as well. Like, wow, wait, do I actually believe, right, that there's actually people long time ago before, the human, as humans exist now, yes, but actually those creations was long gone though, actually. So basically, they had their time, they were gone, and then humans was created later, and then you had the jinn who, after those beings, so jinns came, right? And then after the jinns is humans, though, right? And I am willing to admit, yes, I agree though. The black man is the first man everywhere. I agree. The black man is the first man. It's just that not this story though, but actually real history, yes.
Okay, so he has 2 brains. He got a big old head, and he comes from the center of the earth, and
no, there's nothing else.
And he is the offspring of Conehead and a Big Head. Let's go.
Earth for 6,000 years and have complete dominion over the peoples of Earth. While he was ultimately correct in this prophecy, those who followed Yakub at the time were oblivious to the dark truth of the prophecy and Yakub's real plans for them. Trigonology became quite popular as time went by, with many people starting to follow Yaqub, as they were deeply impressed with his teachings and immense knowledge. The boys who once bullied and looked down on him now wanted to follow him, and the women who once scorned and mocked Yaqub now wanted that Kub hammer. Trigonology became such a powerful movement amongst the surface humans, even the king of the surface humans became intimidated by the threat it posed, and began to persecute the followers of Trigonology, throwing all followers of Trigonology into prison along with Yaqub himself. However, Trigonologist numbers had grown too large, and there weren't enough prisons to hold them all. Realizing that he was out of options, the king went to Yaqub's cell to offer him a deal. "So you are Mr. Yaqub?" "Yes, I am." The king then asked Yaqub what he would accept in exchange for ending the continued spread of Trigonology. Yaqub told him that if he provided enough food, materials, and other necessities to build a civilization for 20 years, Yaqub would spend that time building up a self-sufficient Trigonologist civilization, and after the 20 years, would leave with his followers to distant lands. The king, eager to contain the spread of Yaqub's doctrine, agreed to these terms and provided for Yaqub and his followers for the 20 years, and when that time had passed, the king loaded Yaqub and all his followers onto ships and sent them off into exile. At the time of disembarkment, the Trigonologists numbered 59,999, plus Yaqub, making 60K total people across 100 ships, about 600 people per ship. Departing near modern-day Mecca, they sailed south through the Red Sea to travel around Africa, heading towards their destination of the Isle of Patmos in modern-day Greece, forcing them to circumnavigate the continent. It was on this long voyage that Yaqub began the second phase of his plan to create his devil race. Beginning in a eugenics and human breeding experiment, Yaqub began to favor followers with lighter complexions and began having children with the women in his following. Babies born with lighter complexions were spared, while the darker ones were thrown overboard. Yaqub's plan to create an albinoid people was in motion. When Yaqub's followers found out about his plan and learned that he was killing babies in a demented breeding program, 95% of his followers lost their faith in Yaqub, apparently no longer wishing to follow a giga-brained baby-killing scientist. The now disillusioned followers jumped ship and swam to Africa as they sailed around it, spreading the ebenoid population across the continent, where they would remain to this day. Only 5% of Yaqub's most devoted followers remained, leaving only around 3,000 who reached Patmos with Yaqub. On Patmos, new king of Patmos, Yaqub, established a despotic regime dedicated solely to the creation of his new white race. He set up birth control and Planned Parenthood laws to speed up his eugenics program, commonly referred to as grafting. Only lighter-skinned followers were allowed to have children, and darker-skinned followers were just summarily executed. When a child was born with a skin tone too dark for Yaqub's liking, they were killed by having their heads pricked with sharp needles as soon as they were born. However, this wasn't enough for Yaqub, as his goal was nothing short of the total annihilation of the ebenoid peoples. The corpses of the killed babies would be fed to wild beasts, and if no wild beasts could be found to feed the babies to, the babies would just be incinerated instead. Damn. Yaqub continued this process for many years, tutoring his grafted offspring to continue his work. Yaqub eventually passed away at the age of 150, but his loyal followers continued his work. After 200 years, the followers of Yaqub on Patmos had evolved into a red-skinned people known as the Rubidoid tribe. After another 200 years, the Rubidoid tribe had again evolved, this time into a yellow-skinned people known as the Citrinoid tribe. Finally, another 200 years later, the people on Patmos had evolved into Yaqub's desired people, the Albinoid tribe. These albinoids were inherently wicked and carried the evilness their father Yaqub had held his entire life. The albinoids, now fully ready and imbued with the power of trigonology, returned to the city where Yaqub and his original 59,999 followers had left 600 years ago. In only 6 months, they began causing chaos and war amongst the Ebenoid people. This was around 6000 BC. The king of the Ebenoids knew that these people were of Yaqub's creation. It is unclear if this was the same king who sent away Yaqub, which would make him well over 600 years old. The king rounded up the albinoids and stripped them of their clothing. However, their nakedness was unsightly, so they put some aprons back on them to cover them up. The king's armies then marched the albinoids across the scorching deserts of the Middle East and into the Caucasus Mountains of southeastern Europe, where they were driven into caves and kept there by bands of patrolling soldiers. The albinoids lived in the mountains and caves for 2,000 years. 2,000 years of a brutal, uncivilized existence in the mountains made the albinoids very beast-like in nature, with them developing wild, inhuman behaviors. They walked around nude, wore animal skins in the winter, and grew hair all over their bodies like beasts. They even befriended the beasts, taming wolves and dogs to live in the caves with them, with dogs even becoming valued family members and best friends of the albinoids. At some point, a group of albinoids attempted to graft themselves back into an ebenoid tribe. However, this process failed, and the albinoids who attempted this process became gorillas. As you can see, these albinoids were clearly out of control and were more beast than man. A man named Moses, yes, the biblical Moses, was sent to civilize them. Moses led them out of the caves and attempted to clothe and civilize them. However, once they were out, Moses realized that the albinoids were too barbaric and beastly and gave up on them, blowing up 300 of the most unruly albinoids with dynamite. However, it was too late, and the albinoids had already been unleashed. They killed Moses and began quickly rampaging across the known world, conquering the ebenoid peoples using trigonology, which used the albinoids' lack of empathy and emotion, along with their natural affinity for lies and deception to bring the world to heel before them, building up their empires of violence, colonizing and subjugating the ebenoids of the world for their own nefarious gains, and inventing machines and tools to cause further death and destruction, thus fulfilling Yaqub's original promise of 6,000 years of global domination to those who followed him, leading us up to where we are in the modern day. This is just one version of the story of Yaqub, however, as Yaqub himself has been interpreted in many different ways. One claim is that Yaqub is in fact one and the same with the biblical Jacob, as Yaqub is the Arabic variant of the name Jacob, and Jacob and Yaqub were both leaders of new people, with Jacob being an original patriarch of the early Israeli tribes, and Yaqub being the father of the created Albanoid tribe. Malcolm X even went farther with this interpretation, reinterpreting the famous story of Jacob wrestling with an angel to Yaqub wrestling with the king of the Ebenoid tribe to secure resources to begin his baby-slaying eugenics trip to Patmos. However, he also goes on to say that the biblical character of John of Patmos is Yaqub as well, saying that John was creating a new race on Patmos like Yaqub, which obfuscates the role of Yaqub even further. As to the true origin of Yaqub, Ernest Allen argues that Yaqub may have been inspired by a real historical event during the conflict between Muslims and Christians over the control of Spain in the 12th century. Muslim leader Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur defeated the Franks at the Battle of Alarcos in 1195. After the battle, 40,000 Europeans were captured and taken to Morocco to work as slaves for Yaqub's building projects. After a while, the prisoners were set free and were allowed to settle between the Moroccan cities of Fez and Marrakesh. Another source from Yusuf Nuruddin says that the story of Yaqub may have come from the doctrine of the Jacobites, taught by the Moorish Science Temple, which Fard Muhammad had probably belonged to before starting the Nation of Islam, that teaches that some pre-Columbian civilizations were founded by a West African Moor named Yaqub, who had landed on the Yucatan Peninsula, where the Jacobites evolved into a large-headed race of scientific geniuses, kind of like our friends of the Shi'a, which is used as an explanation for why artifacts such as the Olmec heads had African features. It could be possible that this story was adapted to the current story of Yaqub by Fard and later expanded upon by Elijah Muhammad. The story of Yaqub isn't without its issues, however, even within the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X, as mentioned before, was for a time a proponent and believer in the story of Yaqub. However, following his pilgrimage to the Middle East, he rejected the story of Yaqub and denounced the teachings of Elijah Muhammad as extremely limited in a form of racist zealotry, which stood against his now traditional and more compassionate Islamic beliefs. Elijah Muhammad's successor, Warith Din Muhammad, rejected the story almost immediately, trying to pivot the Nation of Islam away from the Yaqubian story to a mainstream Sunni Islam religion. However, later on, Louis Farrakhan reinstated the original Fard Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad-led Yaqubian doctrine and reasserted his belief in the story of Yaqub, which brings us to today, where the story of Yaqub is still put forth by the Nation of Islam as the truth on the origins of the white race created by their great evil father, Yaqub, the big-headed scientist.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was just the same
Holy
thing.
shit, really?
He gave more detail actually. So
what the
Elijah
hell?
Muhammad's son, right? Elijah Muhammad's son, all right. He passed away in 2008, but actually though, when he took over, the organization, right? He restructured it. He changed the doctrine though to actually to original the real Islam. No, that's one. Two, basically he changed the name of the organization. So he ended the original NOY and everything like that. So the original NOY ended in 1975. It's just that Farrakhan just restarted it.
Wow. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that? Did anybody?
Even Malcolm X,
anybody in the audience, listen. This is getting crazy.
Yeah, I was also gonna say as well, though, right? What Malcolm X did as well when he went to Mecca, though, right, on pilgrimage, right? And he when he was there with everyone else when he was praying, he said, "How can I call myself a Muslim when he didn't really know how to pray?" Everyone else was taught, right, how to pray properly and everything, right? He didn't really, it's just based on how he, he's kind of new to it though as well. He's trying to learn as well. But I admire and respect Malcolm X a lot, I was just saying, that's why he was saying he called himself a Muslim, but he didn't really know how to pray like that. He said that out of his own words. I'm quoting what he said, though.
Man, this is crazy.
Yeah, so I quoted what he said, though, basically. And when he learned how to pray, that's how he when he went around traveling too, though, his perspective changed as well. So.
Wow. So the guys that have converted, the white people, they tied the whole is Muslim into the Shriners and into Masonry. So I wanted to actually show that
in Islam though.
I wanted to actually show that.
So I was gonna tell you though, right? With the one I practice, you come to the faith regardless of your race. It's mostly about your character, and you're not superior to nobody.
I'm talking not about race or whatever. I'm talking about Masonic connection to
like the Masonic,
Islam and Shriners. And all that, because that is what I believe. So I heard the guy say he brought up the Nation of Islam, then he brought up the Church of Scientology. Then in another one, he brought up Masonry, that his families was Masons, and Shriners, and how the Shriners originally are Masonic. So let's get into it.
Well, actually, though, I get you on that, but actually, real Islam, that's not the one that I'm saying to you, though, is actually against Masonry, though, actually. It's actually.
Okay, well, let's hear what they go. Okay, so you're saying it's against it. Let's go.
Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. As we continue with Part 11, What the Shriners Learn from Freemasonry, Ancient Egypt, and the Islamic Destiny by Mustafa El-Amin. Chapter 11, What the Shriners Learn. The Shriners' Order attempts to combine some of the teachings of Christianity with the teachings of Islam. The Shriners' ritual states, our alliance or the rite of our mystic shrine is ancient, honorable, benevolent, and secret. It is devoted to the cause of justice, truth, and mercy. It is as ancient as the cornerstone of Muhammad's temple at Mecca, as secret as the Muslim vow that bound the tribe of Arabia to Allah or their God, as honorable as the Christian, and the tenets to which it is dedicated when assumed cannot be eschewed or cast aloof. Although the Shriners attempt to combine both religions, their teaching is predominantly based on the history of the Prophet Muhammad's teachings of Islam and the symbolism of the Kaaba and the Hajj. Shriners are taught some of the attributes of Allah and take on Islamic names for themselves and their meeting places. For example, in New York, one of the Shriners' temple is called Mecca. In Chicago, Illinois, it is called Medina. In Cleveland, Ohio, Al-Quran Mosque. In Davenport, Iowa, Kaaba. Detroit, Michigan, Muslim. In Denver, Colorado, El Jebel. In Newark and Livingston, New Jersey, Salam. Eric, Pennsylvania, Zemzem. They learn about the Holy Quran, Salat, prayer, Makkah, the Kaaba, the Black Stone, etc. The altar. The altar is covered with a black cloth, with the Bible, the Holy Quran, and a black stone upon it. There is also 2 swords on the altar. They are later arranged so that the Bible is placed in front of the Quran. Officers. Some of the titles of the officers of the mystic shrine are Imperial Potentate, Imperial Deputy Potentate, Imperial Chief Rabban, Assistant Rabban, Imperial High Priest and Prophet Oriental Guide, Imperial Treasurer, Imperial Recorder, Imperial Orator, Imperial Lecturer, Captain of the Guard, Outer Guard. The titles of the officers may differ slightly between the Black Shriners and the White Shriners. Al-Fatiha, the opening prayer. The Shriners' meetings are opened like the Muslims' meetings with Al-Fatiha, which the Shriners call the victory ceremony. For those who may not be familiar with this prayer, it is the first chapter of the Holy Quran, and it consists of 7 verses, which are the essence of the book. It reads, with the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. This prayer speaks of the mercy, the power, and the grace of God. The reader should bear in mind that many of the presidents, vice presidents, congressmen, judges, lawyers, etc. were Shriners. Many of the African-American leaders are Shriners. Many of the leaders of the so-called free world are Shriners. This means that they are at least familiar with the essence of the Quran and the Islamic religion. The Book of 7 Seals. This prayer is called the opening, Al-Fatiha. It is the opening of the 7 seals. The Bible says the book was sealed and that it was taken to several men to see if they could open the book of 7 seals. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals.
I mean, so this is a book that exists that discusses like all of the Shriners stuff. So if you guys get a chance, I'm not gonna like watch this whole thing, but I will put it into the chat room. I think it might be interesting. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I get you on that though. I think what it is though, right, is they just used it though, actually, They don't actually, and I get you on that actually, but actually when you actual real is for me though, I'm saying that actually as an actual practicing one though, actually though, that I'm actually against that, They're just using it and they're just mixing it, And that's just how it is.
Well, the part that really ends up being interesting is that this actually comes out recently when we talk about people like the artist known as Jay-Z, right? So watch this, because let's go.
Okay. I feel you though. But sorry, anyways, though, before the video type thing is, but I only just know simple stuff though, right? Because I'm only like trying to learn the simple basics first, then I'll get to like the advanced things later. I'm only just giving you simple information because that's just the only thing I'm on a level of understanding right now. So I'm just, letting
But
you know.
listen, everything helps. So just wait, just listen to this.
Jay-Z for a reason because they're done with him. But go ahead. Here we go. Tucker Carlson, Sean Stone.
I'll put it like this. The first night that I went there, where was this? The Cornerstone Lodge in New York, which is a very famous lodge. People like Jay-Z, go there and whatnot. It's, it's
Jay-Z's a Mason.
Yeah, from my understanding, he was, he was with that lodge as well, but higher than I was. But the point is that it's an initiation that kind of what I felt was being observed and watched, and I know it was watched because after doing the first degree initiation, where you get the blindfold and the noose and all this stuff is online. I'm not revealing some secrets. All the phrases and things, the geometry of it, where you have to walk, certain directions and points and say certain things. All that's online now. It's public. But when you perform it ritualistically like a play, there are other forces that are not human that are engaging in the experience. And I know that because when I was leaving the lodge that night with my friend, we got a phone call, and it was an unknown number. And this sort of husky voice was on the phone, and he was like, "How was the meeting?" And I was like, "It's an interesting game you guys have going here." And it's like, And we were just talking a bit, saying a lot of things that were like biblical, 40 days in the cave, some stuff that I didn't understand. But I knew that they were watching me because I was walking back to my apartment in New York. And I'm like, "Oh, so you're watching me?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, what am I doing?" He's like, "You're walking." So I stopped walking. And I'm like, "Oh yeah?" He's like, "Yeah, you stopped walking." And I was like, "Okay, it could be a guess, but let's just go up, continue the conversation, go upstairs." And I had like a gray shirt on and black pants. And after, I started recording the conversation. The audio did not record. Subsequently, only the video recorded. But as I was recording, it was this man's voice, and then it would be a woman that would take over. So it was like two voices. It was one as a man, one as a woman. And then she basically said, "Stop recording." And I was like, I didn't stop. I would maybe like stop for a minute, and I turn it back on. And I had at that time I had a cross on. It was not a cross. It was a Islamic sword that I had as a necklace. And so I was taking my shirt off, and she's like, "Put your shirt back on." And I was like, "Oh, you don't like this symbol, or what's wrong?" And it was like,
but see, he said an Islamic sword necklace.
Wow.
Man, this shit's getting weirder and weirder. Let's
"Put
go.
your shirt back on." And I'm like, we just continued to talk, but there were a few things that I remember distinctly, including her saying,
"Wow,
I'll leave you with this. You're wearing a gray shirt with black pants."
What does he mean by that when he means by that? I don't really understand like that. Okay, Islamic sword necklace. What does he mean by that?
Well, the sword with the like curve in it, that particular like is, I guess, probably considered an Islamic sword. I don't know, but hey, listen, don't give me the line. I don't know. Listen, this is for fair use. Okay. This is fair use. We're using this for review and like to understand what's going on. This is for educational purposes. For just commentary and review, just commentary and review. So let's go.
So something had been observing me that night, and they continued to talk with me, and it was essentially, they texted me thereafter, and it was like it went on for an hour or so, like off and on. My friend who took me there got really sick to his stomach. He was like vomiting actually after that, during that same time that I was on the phone, and he really was like physically out of it. And so I was conversing with these things for like an hour, and again, a lot of it was about the fallen angels.
Listen, shout out to Tucker Carlson for getting that interview. It was dense, and I want to tell you this before you watch that interview. You can't believe in you got to. I'm not gonna say you can't believe in anything, but you do got to set aside your your current beliefs to be able to understand what they're trying to explain to you. Okay, and he does talk about Christianity. He does talk about Islam and all of that stuff. And he said most Freemasons are Christian-like. But shout out to, his name is Sean Stone. He is, and it's kind of a Freemasonry. He says, even though I'm not a part of it, we're forever Masons because we've been indoctrinated. It is a spiritual cult, and they have spiritual beliefs that they believe in at the highest degree. So
all right, now here's the thing. If the spiritual beliefs are Islamic in nature, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is the part where I'm like, okay. So all these Masons are really, these Shriners are really practicing Islam in secrecy, but then shunning it at the same time. Very interesting. Very interesting.
They're believers then, and they'll be considered more of the kuffar, basically, the shirk, the commit shirk, the one sin though, right? For an actual Muslim, right? If you actually do that though, then you actually are automatically taken out of the fold of it. And this is not everyone else. I'm not, this is not hating or anything. This is just basically simple information based on it, and do your own research on it, and actually, go find someone who actually knows more about these things. I only know simply that if you actually, hold these beliefs like that, you're actually going against what God actually said, though.
Well, listen, I'm gonna play this one last video because I don't want to offend, Islam, but I'm just saying that it's interesting. Let's go.
But as I said, I've certainly never been involved, and I warn all of you, never, never, never. You will not only lose your mind, you lose your soul.
Now, if you can imagine this pendulum swinging away from earth magic and the Native American shamanism, the opposite is Satanism. You can see two main phenomena. You can see blood ritual. This is a very, very important thing for them. And yes, it's been going on since before recorded history. But alongside that blood ritual, we can see blackmail as, if you like, a way of connecting reins to each and every one of the members in that coven. They witness and take part in a blood ritual to enter that coven.
Listen, guys, listen, I'm not going to get too deep any further into this. This is his channel, Sean Stone.
Okay.
He has a lot of different things on here, y'all. A lot of different things. Go check it out. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep on my channel about it, but if you want to check him out, his name is.
Sorry, I was just gonna say though, right? You actually wonder where they get which element they get it, right? They get it from the Sufi element, because the Sufis, right? They go on a deeper spiritual stuff. So the Sufis I belong to, right? They're more like Sunnis, though, right? But they practice, more on a deeper spiritual level, right? They meditate, they actually contemplate and stuff, So like actual Sufis, right? They focus on more of the actual spiritual element on a deeper level. So like the more high enlightenment type. So that when they actually, when they actually use that though, they're only taking bits and pieces of Sufism and stuff like that, and it's not actually what proper Sufis practice.
Right. So, hey, just so you know, this then went into a rabbit hole because I be watching a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? I watch a lot of crazy stuff.
I feel you on this. I feel you on this topic. Wait, you wanna know this as well, though, right? I feel you on this topic too. The reason why I'm not trying to go too deep into it, because it's not just the rabbit hole, it blows your mind. It blew my mind too much, and I literally broke down because of that. It's not that because, I couldn't handle it. It's just too much information that a brain can take.
Exactly, guys. So if you want to look deeper into it, that's the page. Don't look at the shorts. Go to the videos. You'll see all of it. It gets really, really wow. So thank you, young Riaz. Thank you for being here with me. I appreciate you just coming up and just shedding some light into the difference of the real Islam versus the other things. Before I leave, I want you to give some final thoughts, and we'll go from there.
All right, sure. So my final thoughts is to everyone else, please leave a like, comment, share, connect to the host, connect to me also, support everybody who's a creator here, support and help us grow too. Hope everyone enjoyed this stream, share it out. Also, before you take out anything from the stream, do your research first, and everything I'm saying is all the simple elements though of what as a practicing Muslim, I say though. So if you want to go for any more of the deeper stuff, make sure you do your thorough research, go through all the authentic sources, and read through it back and forth, and read it properly in its original language and in English though. And also, to everyone else who, you know, practices, you know, and all that type of thing, I'm not trying not to offend or anything like that. It's not, we're not here to offend, we're just here because it's a very interesting topic, we're just learning through. So I'm not going to take that away from you, and that's between you and God. And to everyone else, much love, we're done.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place.